We're breaking down the best cornerback prospects in the 2024 NFL Draft today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who make Locked On NFL Scouting your first listen every single day. Thank you for being here. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase.
Joe, happy Monday. We are 2.5 weeks away from the 2024 NFL Draft, the start of the 2024 NFL Draft. And it's business is picking up. We're starting to have the fraudulent character concern reports that are coming out. We already had our Tavondre Sweat news that dropped over the weekend for a player with an unfortunate set of circumstances. That's now going to be another mark in his resume in the pre-draft process. Feels like every year you roll around to April and you're so close to the finish line.
Yeah.
And then this late flurry of just stuff starts to happen for these guys as they wait to get into the NFL. So we're in that end game now.
You know where the best place to focus your attention is during this time of year?
Your
on
house?
The tape. No, on the tape.
Oh.
On the film. On the film. Get all the noise. No, get all the noise. Yeah, if you're a player, stay in your house.
Stay in your house.
If you're an analyst or a fan, and you can't wait for the NFL draft, and you're tired of the narratives, you're tired of the over analysis, you're tired of the smoke screens, just watch the tape. That's where the clarity is. You want to find out what these guys can do, watch the tape. And that's what we did for some of the best cornerback prospects in the draft most recently, and we are going to break them down today on this episode.
So we're starting with cornerback one, who the only thing I know about your takes at cornerback is confirming that we both had the same CB1, which we do. And that is Toledo's Quinyon Mitchell. You want to kind of set the table?
Yeah, be glad to. Quinyon Mitchell, corner, Toledo, our collective CB1. 6 foot, 195 pounds, 31 inches on the arms, 9.25 on the hand size, an RAS score of a 9.8, 40-game starter at Toledo. Crazy ball production over the last couple of seasons, 6 interceptions and 37 pass breakups. To his credit, has been a big-time riser throughout the Senior Bowl process and the Combine. And here he is, sitting atop our cornerback ranking. So, Kyle Crabbs, when you popped on the tape for Quinyon Mitchell, what stood out to you?
Alpha. Right? I think there's a play demeanor. And when you think about cornerbacks and top cornerbacks and how you want them to carry themselves, I think he checks that box for sure. This is a player with good size. He can fly when he wants to, when he gets in the open field or when he gets into pursuit. So you feel really good about his ability to get on the hoof and run with guys on the outside down the field. And then just kind of like the smothering nature of his coverage. I'm not going to put him in like Sauce Gardner at Cincinnati territory, but like there is a physical element of Quinyon Mitchell's game that I am a really, really, really big fan of that I think will allow him to be very sticky. And I like him. The earlier he's able to get hands on people, I like him even more. And there was not a ton of those opportunities at Toledo. But you go through the pre-draft process, the Senior Bowl, you get an opportunity to see him do some different things that I think really polished his resume to where you feel like this is a complete player that could step into any type of scheme or responsibility.
I like the way you started that conversation by just saying that he's an alpha and he has that play demeanor of a top cornerback. And you also mentioned there that you didn't get a ton of opportunities to see him play up in the face of wide receivers at the line of scrimmage and really play press coverage, which is really different than the Alabama corners. Something that I actually really enjoyed about watching those guys is you saw some really translatable press reps. But with Quinyon Mitchell playing a lot of off coverage, and it takes a little bit more tape, I think, to really understand the full breadth of what he offers. But that's what got me excited was from those off alignments, right? Giving that initial cushion, how good of a job he did just being patient, anticipating routes, driving, flipping his hips, turning and running. I feel like there's so much upside for him to do whatever you want him to do, whether that is off man, whether that is playing zone, whether that is, using his size and physical demeanor, playing up and getting those jams early in route stems. I feel like there's just so much that he can do. Oh, by the way, he tackles. Oh, by the way, he plays the run. Oh, by the way, he takes the football away. So he's an exciting prospect. And like I said, it was watching all of these players kind of in succession. It was fun to kind of be able to stack them and measure them against each other. But like my biggest concern was I wish I got to see more press coverage reps, but then you got some chances to do it at the Senior Bowl. And I just feel like it's so translatable. Everything about what he does suggests to me that he's going to be really good if you wanted to play up in the face of receivers at the line of scrimmage as well.
Yeah. And I think you look at the coverage metrics too. I mean, this is several years running like a dominant player at that level of competition. So I think that's when you have the conversation about Quinyon, the value of the pre-draft process. This is one of those guys this year, right? That checks a box at the Senior Bowl, it checks a box with tape, and checks a box at the Senior Bowl, then checks a box at the Combine, and you just run the gauntlet right down the list. And every opportunity that he's had along the way has built to this now complete resume that you feel like this is the top corner in the class and potentially a candidate for the top defensive player off the board.
I love that too. I love that about him, that it's been such a glow up. Toledo, I guess it's a smaller school, relatively speaking, but there's going to be Jim Nagy. There's going to be tweets about Quinyon Mitchell. If this guy could be potentially the first defensive player off the board, probably the first corner. And there's going to be a heck of a story to tell about the value of the pre-draft process that for some has become devalued. Well, Quinyon Mitchell is going to be a poster boy for, what that looks like.
Well, I guess there's an interesting foil there, right? Because that's what happens when you play at Toledo. You have an opportunity to take advantage of some of these even footing events and use it as the catapult, where if you're a second generation Hall of Fame caliber wide receiver playing at Ohio State, it's a different, you're starting your process at a different place. And the guys that don't feel like they have to play ball in that element, that's fine. Don't play ball. Like, stand on your tape. It'll speak for itself. You get the GPS tracking and all this extra added data about your physical profile. But for guys like Quinyon Mitchell, particularly because you looked at the size profile, you looked at the length, you looked at the physicality, be like, man, I'd love to see him in press. Why don't you go to Senior Bowl and get a chance to play press? And it's kind of the same thing that happened with to a more extreme degree, but like you remember Tyreek Stevenson at Miami?
Yeah.
And you were worried about some of the transitional stuff because he did play in space at times too at Miami. And then he goes down to the Senior Bowl and he's hands on everybody and he's pressing guys like off the field. So, just if you have those questions, this is the value of it. Quinyon Mitchell's kind of this year's centerpiece of that.
Quinyon Mitchell, Toledo, CB1 for both Kyle and I. And from here, we get to kind of flesh out the rest of the class. They got a couple of good ones down there in Tuscaloosa, Kyle Crabbs. We're breaking down Terrion Arnold and Kool-Aid McKinstry here on the other side of it. So be sure to stick with us. Folks, you shouldn't have to worry when you're looking to buy tickets for your next big event. Well, you do not have to, because Gametime is here for you, and it is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They have killer deals on last-minute tickets, all-in prices. They give you a view from your seat, a best price guarantee, and they simply take the guesswork out of buying tickets. The app is awesome. It's easy to navigate. They give you flash deals, and I love this. When you buy a ticket from Gametime, they send it straight to your phone. You don't have to dig through the emails to find it. So snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
I had to catch myself and remind myself this is a family-friendly program because you said Tuscaloosa. You know that guy? I don't give a you-know-what about nothing but the Tide. Have you seen that guy?
No.
Oh,
Oh, no. It's the guy on. Yeah, no. There's
Yeah.
reels about this guy. Yeah. I
Yes.
know this
Yes.
guin. Yes, 100%.
Nothing but the time.
Yeah. I know this guy. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Segment 2 is nothing but the time
Yeah.
here on Locked On NFL Scouting.
We got whoever films that guy all the time. Like
living's good, man. Creating content.
Imagine
Who do you like
somebody
more between Terrion Arnold and Kool-Aid McKinstry?
So, can I start by saying this? I really like Kool-Aid McKinstry. I didn't know that. I didn't think I was going to. Like, I haven't really watched him.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like if there was any narratives about Kool-Aid McKinstry was like super hyped up and then maybe like kind of got pushed down a little bit. I don't know. I watched the tape. I thought I saw a really good player. So I'm excited about both of these players. And for me, this is my second and third corners. So I like Arnold better. I think he's got a little bit more athleticism and more ball skills. But I like Kool-Aid McKinstry quite a bit. He's my CB3.
So I will say this too. Was that your unexpected development?
Yeah.
With doing was just how much you like Kool-Aid?
Yeah.
I came away from both of the studies, and I guess it's interesting because I do think their strengths are stylistically different. I expected to like Terrion Arnold more across the board. I'll say this about both of them. They're both really good in run support. I appreciate the Nick Saban school of defense, right? These guys get in the fit, they tackle on the perimeter. If you're playing a man-heavy scheme, I like Kool-Aid McKinstry more
I'd agree
than
with
Terrion
that.
Arnold.
I'd agree with that.
But if you're playing a zone scheme, I like Terrion Arnold more than Kool-Aid McKinstry. I think Kool-Aid is at his best where he is able to dictate reps and control releases up the field. Now, when he does that, he's very physical. And that's the impressive part of Kool-Aid McKinstry. So his profile is a bigger corner, right? This is 200-pound corner at 76th percentile. I think you maybe lost a little. I lost a little bit of the glow for Terrion Arnold he came in smaller than what we thought that he would at the combine as well. So from a weight perspective, 189 pounds. So 109, not a small corner, but I thought he played bigger than that, which is a compliment. But at the same time, you're going to reach a certain stage where you can only punch so far up above your weight class before like it's going to show up against bigger receivers. So if you play zone, I like Arnold more. If you play more man, I like Kool-Aid McKinstry more.
So one of the interesting notes about Terrion Arnold, he's young, so he just turned 21 in March. But he converted from safety. So I think I'm unsurprised that you and I would agree that he does have that zone coverage down a little bit more. And I think Kool-Aid McKinstry is just tighter. He's tighter in his man coverage opportunities. And I think that starts with how firm he is, at the line of scrimmage and how he's willing to crowd and, not allow guys to just easily get into their route stems and set up their breaks. Like you got to play through Kool-Aid, and he's very good at that. And so that physical nature of what he offers was really appealing. Plus he's got 32-inch arms. Like you mentioned, he's right at about 200 pounds, right at about 6 foot as well. So good size. If there was a turnoff for me with Kool-Aid, I just felt like there were so many opportunities that he could have had to make some plays on the ball. And he that's just, whether it wasn't fun. Yeah, it's not his strength. So like, that's like the thing that's missing. If this guy took away the football and can make those big time plays on the ball, I mean, you're talking about a pretty complete player.
I want to make the comp, but I want to make sure that the athletic profile is not too far off the beaten path here. Hold on.
For which guy? Kool-Aid or Terrion?
Yeah, for Kool-Aid. If you ran a little faster, you'd say it's kind of Tyson Campbell type profile, right?
Yeah, I mean that's
Tyson Campbell's about 1/10 of a second faster in the 40, so he's got an extra gear to him, but the length, the physicality. Tyson was 6'1", 193, 32-inch arms, so the length was there. It's like, man, you do everything other than identify the football with consistently to make those plays.
And I think that's interesting because you could see him being a candidate for Jacksonville. Yeah. I mean, right now their scheduled starter, Oppo Tyson Campbell, is Ronald Darby. That's not a long-term answer. So that's kind of fun to invoke that name because I thought about him as a Jaguar while I was watching him, but then, you invoke Tyson Campbell, and I'm like, I'm like even more into that idea.
Right.
I think that's an upgradable spot on their roster.
For sure. And they've spent a lot in a lot of places to address.
Yeah.
And corner, obviously they bring Darby in this offseason, but there's, like you said, that's another opportunity for them to attack something else along the way. Shout out for Terrion Arnold, 200 plus snaps in the slot this year. I think that added versatility will be a nice upside for him for zone defenses, where if you're going to play matchup specific, you can move and match him. And there's I think 200's more than. Yeah, Kool-Aid played like 25 snaps in the slot the last 3 years. I know Quinyon Mitchell, I think, played like 100 snaps in the last 3 years combined in the slot. So Terrion's got a bigger workload in the nickel and slot than both of those other guys, which makes sense when you consider the profiles that we're talking about, right? We're talking about bigger, longer, more physical players. Not that Terrion doesn't have, I think he's like 53rd percentile for arm length. So he has some length to him. He's just not as massy or as physical. But the guy probably with the best transitional quickness out of all three of these guys is Terrion Arnold, and he plays really instinctive football. I think his background at safety helps him a lot. I just think there's maybe some instances as a 190-pound corner where you might get a little outclassed if you had to play in the face on the perimeter against big body type receivers in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the transitional quickness and the overall quick feet, because I think he needs to get better in man coverage, but you feel good about quick feet and fluid hips as things that, as you become, that's a good foundation for becoming a pattern matcher, especially for a guy that's transitioned from safety. And both these guys are really adept at playing NFL coverage concepts from that Alabama defense. So feel pretty good about their ability to come in and be quick starters. And I grade them both as first round grades for me. So I'm in on the Bama corners. I think this is as good of a pair as they've had in a long time.
Yeah, it's two really likable guys with different sets of strengths that I can kind of pick through the back half of the first round and find a team match or two for each that I think would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, if teams are going to say no to the O-line and the receivers, well, you can get these corners, man. You get some good players one way or another. Speaking of good players, we got more of them to talk about. I think we're going to get into Nate Wiggins a bit. We'll make some notes about Cooper Dejean. Really good slot corner we want to talk about, so be sure to stick with us. Have you ever considered what you would do if you had an extra hour in your day? Would you exercise, read, spend time with family and friends, maybe catch up on some sleep? A lot of us spend our lives wishing we had more time. The question is, time for what? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? The best way to squeeze that special thing into your schedule is to know what's important to you, make it a priority. Therapy can help you find out what matters most to you so you can do more of it. It's helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It's not just for people who have experienced major trauma. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you do is fill out a brief questionnaire. That'll get you matched with a licensed therapist. You can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
So, disclaimer on Cooper Dejean. Let's do him first. Yeah, one of the most athletic players, regardless of position in the class. I know he's going to test, I think, here in the next week, coming off of his injury. But 3 pick sixes in 2022. Just ball skills off the charts. Played at Iowa, where there's a lot of sight, zone defense. Played on the perimeter almost exclusively, but has versatility. Well, not almost.
Had some nickel reps, and he played safety.
He did move around. Yeah. They moved around. But played more on, for all of the conversation about is he a corner, is he safety? He played a lot more corner than anything else, which I think is the important footnote here. If you put him at corner, he's my CB2. If you put him at safety, he's my safety 1. So it's really just a matter of, for Cooper, where's he going? What's the vision? I know you and I kind of exchanged off air about the run support profile the zone instincts, the tackling ability, all of that being at safety, really appealing stuff. How do you negotiate between being a corner and being a safety?
First of all, physical, athletic, ball skills, good tackler. Like, okay, I like that. And he's got good size. There's so much to like about Cooper Dejean. Maybe you wish the arm length was a little bit more. But for me, I just think his impact as a playmaker is going to be accentuated most at safety. I think he'd be a fine corner, but I think he's got a chance to be like a really, really high impact playmaker at the safety position. And so I like being able to move him around. I think he can do everything. Like some of his tight end man coverage reps are so good. Like I want to be able to use that. I think in a lot of ways, some of the stuff we talk about with Jalen Ramsey and what he can do for Miami, I think you can do some of that with Cooper Dejean. So I don't want to lock him in as like a static boundary corner. I want to use the versatility, the full breadth of the athleticism, physicality, and move him around. So that's what appeals me most about Cooper Dejean. And I have it exactly the same way. My clear number one safety, he'd be my CB2.
I thought he was better in zone than he was man by a pretty good amount.
Yes.
I think that's the thing where we talk about some of these other guys with transitional quickness and having the ability to play press. You didn't see him play a lot of press.
Right.
And when he's off in space and has to transition because he's a bigger player, I just think there's an extra transition pause that's required where you can kind of get him you test his vertical recovery speed more than some of the other guys who have a little bit more wingspan to play in your face and play press or who have looser hips. So that's the number one thing for me with Cooper is if you feel comfortable with that, if you're going to play a quarter space scheme, you'd be just fine outside at corner, right? If you want to maximize the instincts, maximize the tackling ability, maximize the way that you can move them around, I agree. And when I first misspoke at the beginning, I was referring to 2023. He only played like 50 snaps in the box or in the slot versus 630 reps. He moved around much more in 2022 where he took almost 150 snaps in the slot. So, that's kind of an embodiment. I thought he was better and he made more plays on the ball when they did move him around as compared to this past year where he was a little bit more of a static player.
Those interceptions, some of those interceptions are just crazy.
Yeah.
And just crazy plays in the ball. I think you also have to mention the punt return upside here. 31 career punt returns in addition to 26 fair catches, 13 average, a touchdown. Their touchdown again was against Minnesota, one of the craziest punt returns you'll ever see in your whole life. Unbelievable. And he's had 0 muffs. So he's fielded 57 career punts and muffed none of them on top of the ball skills that he has. You feel pretty good about him being able to handle that ball back there for you as a punt returner. So I think there's so much that he brings to the table, but I think we're both pretty sold on more safety and the transitional quickness, I think, is probably really important. And the cushion that he kind of gives up out of those breaks is mitigated by playing him and deeper alignments. He's such a visual player. I want him to play from depth. So he's a stud. Somebody should pick him in the first round.
Oh, by the way, he played quarterback in high school and passed for 3,500 yards and accounted for 59 total touchdowns.
Man, baller. Just a baller. Friggin' baller.
But we wanted to acknowledge him in this conversation because if we were kind of going in order of ranking, he'd have already come up.
Yeah.
But he's somebody who you and I both like the elements of what else you can unlock with him. And I'm glad you brought up Ramsey's name because the whole thing coming out of this past season for Miami with Ramsey was he was a player in LA who played in the slot and moved around. And then as this past season unfolds, they left him outside and it was a sore spot for the defense where they had a hard time like not bringing it up in exit interviews about Jalen Ramsey moving around. So for Dejean, he's not a positionless player, but he has that positional ambiguity, which is an important note. Nate Wiggins.
6'1", 173.
Glaze right over that. Go ahead.
6'1", 173, 30.5 on the arm length, 9 inches on the hands, 9.44 RAS score, 19 pass breakups, 3 interceptions over the last 2 seasons as a starter. Your impressions from Nate Wiggins studying him at Clemson?
He is very fluid, very quick feet, plays above his weight class, does not shy away from contact. But I think 173 pounds shows up a little bit more than you would love. And at 30.5-inch arms, that's 18th percentile for corners. So we don't have length and we don't have mass. And I just think that you're going to be a coverage player. And if you're comfortable with drafting a high coverage player, this is somebody who's had a lot of success in coverage and his zone coverage, his man coverage. He can stay sticky. He can run with you and mirror routes. Just don't ask him to reroute at the top of the stem or he's going to grab and or he's going to get bumped off his spot. So there's going to be something there for a team that's not going to rely on their corners being involved in run fits, where they're going to be much more comfortable with what he brings to the table. And I acknowledge the athletic profile for what it is. I don't love him as a player. I like him as a player.
Yeah, I think I'm there with you. You have to play around the limitations. He's really, really competitive, but yeah, he falls off tackles. He's not going to be really effective in press, gets bumped at the top. Like those are definitely true characteristics. But I think he can be a playmaker in coverage, which is exciting. I think if you're looking for maybe a feel-good comparison, it's maybe Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, who's 6'2", 184, ran that 4.29 in terms of like maybe, all right, you're looking for a tall, lean corner that had ball skills that you're looking for the case study. I think it's there. But I do think you have to kind of play around some of the limitations there. But obviously the quick feet and how he can turn and run is all really, really appealing. But we were talking about big boy battles, right? I mean, 173 pounds, like it's not even like it's 179. And
right.
We knew that weight was going to be a question. And you showed up at 173, like good that you ran the 4.29 or whatever it was, that or 4.28. That's certainly helpful, but
also it's 6'1.5" too. So it's not even like he's a compact frame.
Yeah.
So he's like this
really
oddly like 88th percentile height, but 18th percentile arm length. It's just a weird blend that we're going to talk about somebody next who I think is a nickel exclusive player. And I bring that up to say, I think with his height, I don't even know that this is a nickel player because he's
got to tackle too.
Bringing the fits in the run and the D gap. And like, that's not going to happen. Where Mike Sainristil from Michigan, at least he's 5'9", right? Like at least he's going to get under guys that can cut you down at 182 pounds.
Yeah.
Consistent for a little bit more height weight proportionate versus 80th percentile height and 8th percentile weight.
I'm here for all the Nate Wiggins versus Troy Franklin one-on-one reps in the NFL. They're match made in heaven for each other.
They should just travel to different teams and play each other.
May be perfect for everybody. All-time Q instead of all-time QB, it's all-time CB.
All-time CB, CB, and wide receiver.
Yeah. You said Mike Sainristil, corner out of Michigan, 5'9", 182, 30 7/8 on the arm, 8.5 on the hand, RAS score of an 8.45. Last couple of years as a starter, and these are the first 2 years of his life as a defensive back. He was a wide receiver for 3 seasons at Michigan before becoming a corner for them. 10.5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 7 interceptions, 13 pass breakups, 2 forced fumbles over the last 2 seasons. Really exciting, like, trajectory for a slot role in the NFL based on what he's already shown in just 2 years on the job at Michigan.
He is an absolute baller. Now, there's limitations with 5'9" and 180 pounds. There's limitations with is a nickel exclusive player, so now you're getting into positional value in that whole conversation. But if you go just off of the tape and executing your role, he's one of the best 50 players in the class. And I feel very strongly about that just by what he does and what the mechanics are of what he's asked to do. The ceiling's not there for things to be uncoachable, and maybe the replacement level conversation gets different because he does play nickel, but pretty explosive dude too. I mean, his jumps are 88th and 91st percentile for corner since 2000 at the combine. He ran a 4-second flat 20-yard shuttle. That's 84th percentile. He tackles. He tackles well. He's instinctive. He's way more instinctive than what you would ever dream a player with 2 years of defensive tape would be. And I think that all combined for me is it's like, okay, well, like this is a dynamic athlete who tackles better than he should, but at least he's compact with his frame and he's super instinctive in coverage. Put him on my team every day.
Yeah, I think
I'll figure it out.
Be a good slot corner in the NFL. I think you can still see he's still growing into the position too with some route anticipation stuff, but I think the foundation is there for that to absolutely improve. And if you're going to play him in the slot, something that's mitigated, although it's got to be tough to be a slot corner, man. Like two-way goes, how you can be wrong no matter what. You could just be wrong. Just there's nothing, you can't be right. So some of that stuff is really difficult and he's got to fit the run and stuff, but man, he does it.
It used to be just don't get beat over the top, and now it's almost worse to get beat inside, right? Just because of how these defenses are structured, you're structured to have safety help over the top, but if you let him win inside and he's running a crosser and all that stuff other clears out, like that's where your explosive plays are at now.
Tough job, man.
Hard life to live.
It really is. I wouldn't want to do it. Put me at defensive tackle, and there's only 3 things you can do to me, and I'll just be physical and all that. But these guys have to play some tough matchups there in the slot.
Any other shout outs you want to give?
No.
There's some other names we did not get to, like TJ Tampa from Iowa State, Dennis Rakestraw, Kyrie Jackson from Oregon. So there's more names than this, but these were the names. Yep, Max Melton from Rutgers. It's a very good corner class. Now, where the run starts is a different conversation. I think that's the really fun part about the class. The good news is we don't have to wait all that much longer to find out. A couple weeks. Kyle Crabbs, Joe Marino. We are locked on NFL scouting. Hope you guys enjoyed this cornerback conversation. That is going to do it for us here today on the show. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Make it a good one. We're out of here.